Hello, grade 10, 11s, and 12s in my class. Today we're going to be talking about how do we take all this probability stuff that we've been taking a look at and now turning it into a graph, or taking a graph and turning it into a table. So with this first part, we'll start off with taking a look at a graph already. What kind of information are we getting from it? What's important to have on a graph? So you can see here, important thing to have, number one, a title. So you're telling the reader what is this graph all about. Notice how the axes, there's an x-axis right over here, and we have a y-axis of here. They both have a scale, so that's important. We got title, we have a scale. They don't have to be the same scale on the x and the y. And the different axes also have to have a title. So notice how we have a title here to explain that scale, and we also have a title here to explain that scale. On the y-axis, go with y here, label x. On the y-axis, it usually is the frequency. How many times did that outcome occur? So what I want us to do here together is turn this graph into a frequency table. So we can see what a frequency table is, what does it mean, and so we can kind of understand what information we're getting from here. So I'm going to make a table here that says frequency. Oh, we're going to erase that, and we're going to start with outcome first. So on the left, we're always going to have what is our outcome. I'm going to make a line there. Sometimes you might see that there's a section for a tally, so we'll do that and then probably drop it later on. And then we have the last column for frequency. So in our rolling a die, the outcomes, the different possible outcomes that could happen are a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. So based on our graph up here, we can see that the bar on number 1 goes up here. So that means that the frequency is 4, or if we turned it into a tally, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes you do the tally first and then you count it up and put it as an actual number later on. For 2 here, we can see it goes up to 6, so that's going to be 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For 3, it goes up to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For 4, it just goes up to 1, so 1 and 1. For 5, it goes up to the 3. So you're already seeing it's really not that difficult. And 6 has a 1, which is great. So my first question is that I want to ask is how many rolls in total? Basically, how many trials did you do? This is an experiment, right? We're collecting data from someone who rolled the die a certain number of times and they wrote down everything that happened. So how many trials, how many rolls happened? Well, if we add up this whole line here, so 4 plus 6 plus 5 plus 1 plus 3 plus 1, we get 10, 15, 16, 20 in total. So this person did 20 trials and they recorded it. So now based on this, I want to know what is the probability of rolling a 4. So if we look in our table here, then we're going to see we want to know the probability of getting a 4, like what actually happened. So we know that the total number of trials was 20, so we put that in the bottom. And in this frequency table, we see that a 4 was rolled once, so the probability was 1 out of 20. Now I want to know take it one more level. What's the probability that an even number was rolled using this experimental data? So again, we know that there was 20 trials in total. So the even outcomes are 2, 4, and 6. So 2 was rolled 6 times, a 4 was rolled 1 time, and a 6 was rolled 1 time. So 6 plus 1 gives us 8 out of 20. But is that the lowest possible option? Oops, no. So we need to make sure that we make it the smallest amount possible. So let's divide that by 4 and divide this by 4. And our lowest possible, lowest fraction here is 2 out of 5. And now we have our probability. So now let's go the opposite way. What if we're given that outcome tally frequency and we need to turn it into a graph, making sure that we include all the important information? So in this question, Erica tossed a coin 50 times, so 50 trials in total, which means that this plus this should add up to 50, which it does. She tossed a coin 50 times and recorded her results in a frequency distribution table, as we can see here. So the tallies are no fun to look at. It's a lot easier to read the numbers. So we're going to go from that. So as a title, we can say, we can call it coin toss outcomes. Obviously, you would be doing this on graph paper. Coin toss outcomes. Okay, so I'm going to make a X and a Y axis right here. X and Y. And remember that we said we have this title, but we need to have the other two titles as well. So we need to write our frequency on there we go. We need to record our frequency on the left there, and on the bottom we want to say our outcomes. Now in this case we only really have two outcomes here. We have heads so it doesn't always have to be in numbers or scale, it just could be what are we dealing with. So heads and tails are the two options. And our frequency goes up to, our highest number is 31 here, so we need to make sure we have a scale that goes up to 31. We can go up, if you had a bigger page, you can go up by 1s, you can go up by 2s, doesn't really matter. Am I going to have enough room to go up by 2s? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 46, 48, 30. Why not? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So you make your scale. 30 and just enough to get up to 32 at the top there. Perfect. So now I'm going to pick a different color and make a bar graph that goes up to 31 on heads. So maybe I'll start here, go all the way up with a ruler if I had one. In between there would give me 31. Drop down. Same with tails. We know that our tails has to go up to 19. So I'm going to bring this up until we get to the middle here to show 19. Come back down. You can color it in if you want to, or shade it in with some stripes there. Doesn't really matter to me. We have the important parts there. We have a title. Title. Maybe I should underline our bottom title there. We have some kind of a label on the two bars at the bottom, or a scale depending on what the outcomes are, but all the outcomes are listed. And we have a scale for the frequency up at the top, going up by an even amount, by 2 every time. So that's kind of something that I want to see you working on this week, and you'll see in tomorrow's expectation for the week. So we'll do one last question, here together. So you have this spinner here. As an example, it's a spinner labeled 1 to 8. What are the outcomes? So let's answer that one together. You can pause it if you want to and then check out the answer. So what are the outcomes? Our outcomes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Literally listing out the outcomes. Those are the possible options that you could get if you roll the spinner. Are they equally likely? And the answer to this is yes. And why are they equally likely? Because they're all the same size slice on the spinner. Same size. So now, based on this, I want to know what's the probability of spinning and getting a 2. So remember that we have to have our total number of possible outcomes. This is now theoretical because we haven't actually spun the spinner yet. but so we're seeing what are we supposed to get? If we roll a 2, what are the chances? So we know there's 8 total possible outcomes, and the chance of getting a 2, well, there's only one slice with the chance of, with the number 2. So our probability is 1 out of 8, and that is the lowest. Our next question for probability is, what's the chance of spinning and getting a 5, a 6, or an 8? So I have 3 possible options. So again, we know there's 8 in total, and I want to know the probability of a 5, a 6, or an 8. So that's all part of one question. So we go back up and we see, okay, I have 1 5, 1 6, and 1 8, which is 1 plus 1 plus 1, or 3 spots in total that would satisfy this condition. So that's 3 out of 8 slices of the spinner, or 3 out of 8 is our chance of getting a 5, a 6, or an 8. Now that's all really just review from testing our theoretical probability from last week, but now this is going to be your job right now. So I made up a hypothetical frequency table. I didn't do the tally. What I want you to do is now pause the video. I guess it's over anyways. I want you to take a picture of this data or pause it so you have this data, graph this data in from this following frequency table. I want you to make a graph and then check your answer. I'm going to post this whole thing as a PDF and the solution on the last page of what your graph should look like, including everything. And that's your check for today. That's your homework. And then tomorrow you'll see the assignment that I want you to do. Not assignment, but just something to check in and check in on your understanding. Thank you.